The question is, do other countries take a week off to go party on beaches as a break from college?
Pack your bags, we're on the move. Rhythm and Rome got nothing to lose. Culture clash from coast to coast. Misconceptions, we chasing ghosts. Travel far wide, explore the unknown. Rhythm and Rome making you feel at home. From the streets to the...
Well, I don't know that they take off a week, but we've certainly seen it, at least I've seen it highlighted in movies and things that I've watched. I think it's more closely tied to graduation.
Is the way to go.
It's mostly tied to graduation or like actually achieving something as opposed to blowing off steam, right?
Well, let me be clear. So yes, other college age students do get shit faced. That's 100% accurate.
Yes,
but is it that they're traveling? And I think it has to do with the size of our country, because we do have beaches, we do have like places that are freezing in the springtime, the March time frame, and they want to travel someplace warm. And I don't know if that's the case in other countries. That's the first part of it.
Yeah.
And the second part is just the idea of all these college age students flocking into one area. And historically it's been Fort Lauderdale back in like the 50s and 60s, or Panama City, to just party. I don't know that.
So I can
like
maybe give,
Mexico does that, or
I can give what I
Nigeria.
observed.
Well, we have so much. Well, before you say that, Paul, I just let me just say this: is that much of the United States also, I should say, or I should say, a lot of the countries are landlocked. So the idea, or this spring break idea,
I mean, the
I
states?
think is,
are you talking about?
yeah, the states themselves are landlocked. Yes, they may have a lake or whatever, but as far as that beach culture and that beach atmosphere that we see about spring break, yeah, that's, they're having to flock to the coast.
It's just water. And I don't think.
Well, it's got to be warm. We ain't trying to go to the Arctic on spring.
Right.
No. You'd be surprised. What I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be the beach. It could be.
That's
lake.
true. It could be
lake, and it could be mountains. Because I've seen people in Oregon.
It could be skiing as well.
Yeah,
it could be snow
as well.
Yeah, I think it's just leisure, not being in school. I think that's the whole thing. Being able to blow off steam, as you will. I
think if we were to take a poll and ask like 20 different Americans what they think of when they think of spring break, they're probably going to think of people going to Florida, Mexico,
Key West.
Yeah, I mean, that's Florida.
South Padre here in Texas.
Yeah, someplace with the party culture and like the big old footlong things of beer and the Jello shots.
That's what the North would think.
Okay.
Right? And I've learned this. Sorry, Trecia. I learned this when I was going to college down at University of Miami. It's interesting because people down south want to go north. People up north want to go down south. Yeah, because when I was in Miami, I remember some of my Floridian friends traveled north, and obviously North Carolina is considered north. They'll go there, or they'll go to DC, or they would even go to New York City for spring break.
Okay.
Because they've never been, and then people up north would want to come down.
That's fair. That's fair. So it does matter where you are in the country. Your spring break destination, would vary, because I wasn't trying to go north, living in Wisconsin and Michigan, or going to school in New York. We went south. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
agreed.
Because you wanted that weather, and hell, we got the weather here. I know when I was down south for college, I was happy to be in Miami because I knew it was going to be cheaper, because I had a place to stay, and everybody comes to me.
So you just stayed
for spring break. I stayed every year.
Everybody came to you.
Everybody came to me, and I loved it, and stuff like that. But when you're looking on the European side, because like I said, I spent majority of my adult life in Europe, I think, Benef, to your point, they don't celebrate spring break like Americans do. And I think the reason why Americans do truly celebrate it a lot is because we're so still together with everybody. From, however, because we have dormitories, we're same age group in the same area all the time. Whereas here in Europe, I think, number one, they have more holidays than we do in the States. So every time you turn around, when it gets starting to get warmer, there's some festival gonna happen. And there's that, there's all sorts of traditional thing that's happening, where they're just gonna take the time and do that. And then they block these dates, like, for example, in ending of February to like the first or second week in March is a winter break for a majority of European countries.
And but not to mention going on this break,
both to ski, and majority of them are going to warm climate places.
To warm climates, okay.
In
But then
Europe.
also it has to do with the school year too, right? So I mean, I think most of the schools in Europe actually have a 3 or 4 quarters, don't they?
Well,
During the year?
depends. It depends on which country you're talking about. So,
Okay.
for example, here in France, trimesters is what you're saying. But
Right, yeah.
in France, they do their spring break, to your point, in different regions. So everyone in France don't have spring break the same time. So Paris region,
It's not the same in the States either. We're not all going at the same time.
well,
That's
you're right. But I mean, it's probably, I don't know how it's broken up in the States, but I know in France it's broken up where they rotate. So region of Paris will be rotating.
Are they?
now.
Is this like a government sanctioned rotation?
Government
They've
sanctioned,
actually
yeah.
thought this out. Okay,
It's
no,
thought
that's
out.
clearly
So
nothing
the
has
first-
been thought out in the United States. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
whenever the school
No,
decides
just
to
go.
do it.
First 2 weeks is like the Parisian region or Ile-de-France or whatever it's called.
Okay.
And then following that, they come back, they go to school, and now another region, Normandy, will do theirs, and then another region will do theirs. So, and then they rotate the following year, so everybody gets it at a different time frame.
Okay.
So
So
is it that the families are all traveling together? Is this like a
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
like elementary school breaks?
Elementary
Like
school, all the way
everyone
up to college.
is taking
all
a
the way
break
to
at the
same
college.
time.
So right
Yeah.
now in Paris, everybody is on that break, and it's really nice and lovely here in Paris because it's empty. Because everybody wants to.
Well,
So
I guess
love it.
what we have no way of knowing, and hopefully our viewers can, or our listeners can help us out, is what is it like in other countries that we have not lived in?
Right.
What is the school break situation for college age students or for high school students?
And typically
even
for
a
here, or in here meaning United States, anytime in March, like the second week in March through pretty much April, I think it kind of staggers depending I think by the first part of April, it's pretty much done. I do know that, and Paul, you were talking about the different regions. I think there are regions, Texas for us, we hit Colorado because I know I did that with my family about 2 years in a row with our neighbors. We all went skiing in Colorado. And it was funny because it was known as Texas Week. We didn't know it was Texas Week, but of course it was because most of the schools were out that week. And so the Coloradians did not ski that week. They stayed home.
Because they
The
didn't want to
following
deal
week,
with
they didn't
y'all.
want to do it.
Yeah.
And when I tell you how many people that I met that were from our area that I saw on vacation skiing in Colorado, I was like, who knew? And that was the first time we had ever gone skiing the first time, but it was so many people that went. The other spot would be New Orleans. That's another big place that people from this far south go. Of course, Mexico, obviously. Florida is the other one, but another one is Atlanta. That's another big.
But correct me
here.
if I'm wrong, it's only a week we get in the States.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a week,
Yeah.
or like it could be end up being 10.
10 days,
So-
depending on how you
I
plan
was
it.
just
Yeah.
about to say it is definitely 14 days or more here in France.
Oh, see,
But
yeah.
Because that's a must.
But they have school. Do they have school year round or no? They do have a summer break
Ooh.
too, as well.
No, they have a summer break. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
right. I
Yeah.
thought, yeah.
But they
That's a lot of
definitely
break.
do 2 weeks. Oh yeah.
It is. So, but to get back to the question as far as like the tradition of it, us, it's, of course, United States to blow off steam because we have a whole year or 180 days of school, right? So typically there is not a break other than the holidays that you have at Christmas time or, during the holiday season. And then so that your next break is not until that spring break. And that's supposed to be the blow off steam for the last push that goes into May and June, which is the end of the
Well,
the
it's
term.
more than
end of the
180 days
second is
of school, but yeah.
well,
yeah.
at minimum, you're supposed to have here, at least in Texas, you're supposed to have 180 days of instruction.
Okay.
So that's kind of that's a calendar I'm thinking in my head, but at least the last push through May and June, because some schools don't start until September or mid-September.
Usually schools
So
up north is usually
Right.
September.
correct. And there are some states like Colorado that do the 3 terms, right? So
No, we
you
don't.
have
It's one. No, it's
you
just
do
2
one.
terms.
There are some schools that do 3. So I do know for a fact that I have some friends that
Military
have
school,
children.
maybe?
Nope.
Military?
Public school. They go three
Wow,
terms.
never
They
heard
go
of
3
that.
terms. Not to mention college also does the 3 because my son, when he graduated from DU, they do 3 quarters. So that was pretty interesting. They had a little break. They had a longer break at the holidays and then had one again in March and then had the push. So that was interesting. But what I was getting to as far as a tradition, our tradition is to blow off steam, but when we were doing our research for the show, one thing that we did come across, I think, that was interesting is that this spring break mentality is really, they do have spring break, but it is tied into religious holidays. So it's not necessarily
other countries in the
yeah,
world
the other
have spring break,
countries have it. Yeah. So
What
I thought it was
countries,
pretty
like,
interesting.
What continent or what region? Sorry.
Well, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Canada.
Asia.
Yeah, so a lot of the Asian, UK has a half term Easter holidays, a May half term that they have as well, but they're all tied into some type of
A lot of it's some sort of spring festival or what
like
not
Paul mentioned. Yeah,
Yeah.
a party
But
culture.
May is definitely not spring. May is something totally different.
yeah.
What do you mean May
Well,
is not spring?
May is spring.
May here is usually start of summer.
Well,
Oh,
the
well,
official start of summer is June 21st.
Yeah, it's June.
But
Yes,
So-
we know that, but I'm just saying,
I'm
like
just making sure.
May, no one classifies that as spring. Spring usually like March. Or April.
I guess so. You're
Well-
talking about French people, is what you're saying when you
And
say no
Germans.
one,
Okay.
French, the Germans are the
Okay.
same
because
a
May
lot of-
Day is usually. I mean,
May
It's
is usually a
spring.
lot of no. Trisha said it. May is usually a lot of the religious stuff is happening. Because, for example, in May, that is where we get a lot of holiday breaks. Like literally, you only work and this is no joke, in France, 1 week out of the whole month of March.
Mhm.
but they aren't all religious holidays, though. You said they were-
Majority of them are religious holidays.
they're religious holidays.
Majority of them, yeah.
Portugal and
It's really-
Spain also is another big country that has that very same thing because they actually have a Holy Week
It's
that
a whole
they have
in-
that they
in
celebrate.
France. Yep. And
So
May
I
too as
think
well.
I think the breaks are there. So if we're talking about spring break, so yeah, the spring breaks are there, but obviously for very different reasons. And
We
the
get
culture.
crack dates and they don't.
Well,
Or I don't know.
again, I think the whole drinking and I'm still not sure where the whole drinking thing came from because
Well, I think it's because of the drinking age. I mean,
Yes.
the
it's
Europeans, a lot of other countries,
not
Start
taboo.
drinking at
Asia, the
14,
drinking
15
age
years old.
is younger, and so they
Yeah.
don't have this binge drinking mentality because they're
Agree.
just
Agree.
drinking.
Yeah, they don't have the taboo.
at dinner regularly, and here
Mhm.
we're like,
Mhm.
"Hey, we're gonna go get shit
For
faced.
example, in
That's
Germany,
right.
End
they
up
start when they're
sleeping
15.
in a bush, huh?"
They start when they're 15 in Germany to drink beer.
Yeah.
You know, in
Yeah, but they're
France,
not getting. I mean, they
no,
probably
no.
do get shit faced, but the idea is not to.
It's not a
binge
big
drink.
deal. Yeah.
Right.
it's
Yeah,
just-
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It is just a normal kind of a normal thing that happens. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up also with that is if the spring break is not done with, and we may have mentioned this before, but it's done with your friends, right? Your other peers that are supposedly, your classmates or your best friend or whoever it is that you're going to do spring
for
break
the most
with.
part, I think.
Meanwhile, I think with abroad, it's really
Family.
family, right? It's a
Mhm.
family oriented type thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's going to be religious or a festival or something of that nature.
Definitely.
Also, I would also think the proximity, right? As far as trying to travel within that span of time is probably part of the reason as well.
What do you mean by
Okay, so
proximity?
there's a week, like we stated, there's the week that we have of the 5 days of no school or no classes. But in Europe, like you said, there is more time. So there's at least 14, 15, maybe even 20 days that you're able to pull together to actually go a distance. Correct?
I think it's just, yeah, it is. But I think just historically, so Americans are normally used to like going wherever distance we're wanting to go for 3-4 days at a time.
Mhm.
Whereas like Europeans, and I can't grab my hand around it, why they would travel. So for example, I can live with going to a ski trip for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
In Europe, they will go for a minimum 7 days, a minimum. Some of it will be the full 2 weeks. And I'm just like, I can't stay in one location that long. That's crazy.
Mhm.
But that's what they will do. And right now, like, for example, like I said, my neighbor, they're on the, whatever you want to call it, winter break, spring break, whatever it is. They're in the Guadalupe Island, whatever. But they're there for the full 2 weeks. I'm like,
Okay.
God damn, that's a
That's a
long
long-
Long
That's
way
a
to
long-
go from
I know,
France.
but
Yeah.
still, 2 weeks. is
Well,
like-
I mean, it's too long.
I get
for me, too.
antsy.
I'm like,
yeah, I want
oh
to
my
go
God.
somewhere else.
I want to be back to my own bed. Like this is
But
ridiculous.
but again, is that just the mentality though? Is that a US mentality though? because
so,
we have
because
to pack everything in. We got to
pack
do all this
everything
stuff
in.
and get in,
Yes.
So
yes,
Well,
you
plus,
have
I
that.
mean, look how much space I have in my house. I'll be cramped in some small ass hotel room for 14
No,
days.
I agree.
Hell no.
And
Well,
then
certainly
why
with your
would-
family.
Yeah,
My God.
and they will do it with the family all the time.
Yeah.
More so, and then they will do things with their friends on weekends.
Okay.
So
Yep. Got it.
I've seen that too as well, because I've
Okay.
started to get involved into hanging out with, for example, with my German friends or my European friends, and they'll be like, "Hey, we're gonna go here for 3 or 4 days," and then that's it. But okay,
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting, and I appreciate the research that was done in this, as I always do. But I thought we should mention the early days of spring break, because where did this term come from? Like, how did we come up with a spring break? When I think of spring break, I still remember watching Gidget
Wow.
with Sally Field and
Yeah.
watching her and Moondoggy, surfing it up on, whatever. So when I think of
Like
when I
the
think of spring
Beach
break, I think
Boys.
that I think of
Yeah,
that
movie
mentality.
where the boys are, that was like a
Which is
big
very weird. Or
spring break.
Freaknik, or have a Freaknik,
all right.
yep. I know those, those very unique experiences that are there. So, I mean, in 1936 was the first recorded spring break, and it took place at Colgate University in Hamilton, New York.
That's not where the spring break took place, but they took the spring break from there
From there
to
to
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
It was like,
No.
Okay,
so
to
it
Florida.
was the swim team. The coach wanted to train, and it
Right.
made sense to go south. And I think that's what caught on, and that makes sense. We see that a lot with spring training, with baseball and other sports, because it's
Right.
cold. So let's go to Florida or someplace warm to do that, and it just caught
Right.
on.
And as we've talked about in the past, and how powerful television is, and images and
Hollywood
movies, Hollywood
Yeah.
in the 1960s is where it gained wider recognition, right? The rise of the spring break because of all the popular movies and all the great things. So, and I think it kind of solidified Florida as this big epicenter now, as the place, the ultimate spring break place. So it's really interesting how that has fed into the whole perception of spring break.
So I guess if we were to wrap it up into a nice little gift, what is the moral of this chapter in the episode for travel, for culture, and misconception?
Obviously
moral is we
spring
don't
break has nothing to do with morals.
actually know what it's like in other countries. That was my original question: is this party culture the same, and has it evolved? Like, have we evolved to, I'm going to do some volunteering? Like, my son did rustic pathways, where they went to Tanzania to help build a structure for a school.
That's right.
There's there's volunteering, there's community service, besides just getting. So there are other things that I think we have evolved with this.
Not to mention, believe it or not, and we can't forget the evangelism that happens on these beaches. There are missions where people go out to minister to young folks during spring break. So that is
getting old, because I still consider it being where people go and get trashed.
Well, right. You're
just trying to say.
And when was the last time you've been on spring break, Gen Xer?
Almost every time there's a spring break going on, I'm going somewhere and I see these idiots.
So you're going to spring break to hang out with a college age student?
No. I go to travel, and I go to travel.
Let's get that clear.
I go to travel, and I somehow see spring breakers there doing whatever spring breakers do. So, for example, last year I was in Ibiza. There are spring breakers there.
Yeah.
So, obviously.
I mean, you see them partying and stuff like that, but my point is they were getting trash face.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's not, I think there's maybe more choices, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what we're trying. I think that's what we're trying to say. I think
that's
what we're trying to say is there's more choices than just drinking on your spring break. You can make your spring break can be whatever you want it to be, whether it's in service to others or service to others or service to yourself.
Or to both.
or both, right? So as we always like to do in our comment section, we're going to put in a couple of articles that if you want to spur your spring break and of course your travel, we're going to have some best spring break destinations for the world as well as for the United States. So,
and we want to hear if you got any crazy spring break stories.
Exactly. What are those spring break stories? we've shared with you guys some pretty interesting stories in general. So I feel like we don't need to share any stories, especially our origin stories. So you'll want to definitely check that out, because I'm kind of thinking, Benef, although that was your first trip, it pretty much can be that spring break story because you were still in your teens. So we're going to go with that. Although you were military.
What are you
She was
talking
in her
about?
20s.
Well,
Oh, my origin stories. I had already
your
graduated
origin
college.
story. Well, still, it still can count, I think, as your spring break trip. But anywho, because did you go on a spring break trip other than that?
I do have some spring break stories, but we don't need to get into
Lord,
that.
so maybe we should have put them in here, but because of time, we're not going to.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear Benef's story, go ahead and message us so that she can tell us one of those stories.
Sure.
But I do want to say thank you for
We're
watching.
just glad
We
there
just-
was no social media.
Right? Thank you. That's what we're so
The
happy
90s.
about. But we definitely want to thank you for watching. Leave your comments for us here today. Also, be sure to tell folks about our show. We really want to continue to bring you these great and interesting topics of traveling abroad as well as within the U.S. And also, do not forget to share and subscribe. So, with that, it was great to talk to you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Coast to coast, misconceptions we chasing ghosts. Travel far wide.